Okay, so today on Ladies of Bhakti, we are in the presence of someone who truly embodies what it means to live Bhakti, not just as a practice, but as a force of transformation in the world. Rukmini Walker Prabhu is a pioneer, a guide, and a living bridge between tradition and evolution. As one of the first disciples of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, she carries a direct connection to the roots of the Krishna consciousness movement in the West, while continuing to expand its relevance in today's world with grace, intelligence, and deep devotion. She is the visionary behind Urban Devi, a platform devoted to women's spiritual empowerment and a key steward of the mission at the Bhakti Center in New York City. Her leadership extends globally, from shaping spiritual education at Bhaktivedanta College to advising the global future of International Society for Krishna Consciousness through Sabha. But what makes Rukmini truly special is the way she weaves it all together: devotion, activism, ecology, interfaith dialogue, motherhood, and sacred creativity.
Mm.
Her life is bhakti in motion. Her voice carries wisdom earned through decades of lived experience across cultures, continents, and communities. She reminds us that bhakti isn't small, it's not confined, it's a living, breathing, evolving path, and we as women have a powerful place within it. Welcome, Rukmini Walker Prabhu. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. I offer all your words to Srila Prabhupada and all of my teachers. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And just hope to live up to the path that they've given me. So thank you for your kind words, which I hope one day will become true.
And I was reading your website and your words, and I was just, oh my goodness, you've done so many amazing things. Yeah, it's really, I'm so excited for this interview. And I know we got to connect a little bit yesterday, which was great too. So we got to know each other a little bit better. But um, the first question that we have, so we've collectively put these questions together, the ladies of Bhakti. But the first question we love to ask is, how did you first come to Krishna consciousness?
Well, it's interesting to me that you're calling from San Francisco because that's, of course, where I first met the devotees. But I would say before that, before meeting them, I always kind of felt like an alien who'd been dropped from another planet. I just couldn't figure out what was going on in the world. I couldn't figure out what was motivating people to do what they did. They're everything just seems so foolish and temporary. And I remember sitting in the window of my house and looking out the window, people going to work, people going to this and that, and just thinking, what are they doing? They're all just going to die. It's all so temporary. So, I resonated with the devotees in San Francisco. It was really that temple on Frederick Street was a power chakra. Many of the people, young devotees who were there, became gurus, became important leaders in ISKCON. And so I was just there. I had first walked into the temple in San Francisco, and then I went, to Ma Krishna Maharaj, he had just come to the temple himself about 3 months before. He didn't even have a shaved head or anything, but he reached out to speak with me. And anyway, he gave me some sweet advice. He said, look, after these six, go to London, because the six who went to open the temple in London, they were leaving, three couples and one baby. And he said, look, there's not going to be any good association or sangha for a young woman devotee here in San Francisco. So you should either go with them to London, or you should go. I was interested in art, or you should go to Boston to, there's a little community of young women painting learning to paint for Prabhupada's books. And then he was saying, well, in London, they don't really know where they're going to go. They don't really have any fixed place. They don't have any money. and I was attracted to painting. So I went with them to Montreal to get initiation. I'd only been coming to the temple for 2 weeks, which is sounds kind of crazy now, like anyone who could say, if Prabhupada would say, well, who is Krishna? If they could say, well, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then they could be initiated. So it was a little different from the way it is now with disciple courses and everything else. But so I went with them and met Srila Prabhupada. And when I first came in with them to meet him, Yamuna Devi told Prabhupada, "This is Wendy, and she's only 16 years old, and she would like to become your disciple." And Srila Prabhupada, his face kind of wrinkled up, and he said, "But where are your parents?" Which was so interesting because, he was really feeling the pain of my faraway parents and, feeling compassion for their suffering, which really struck me. And I have to also say he was so effulgent, just like a shining sun. I mean, he was like a blinding, shining sun sitting there behind his little on the floor desk. But so that was my first experience, and then being in Montreal for a little while, and then heading to Boston to join the group that was painting. Little
Wow,
introduction.
what a journey. At 16, oh my goodness.
So
Yeah, there's a story I recently heard. You mentioned initiation was quite a different process before that. Prabhupada would have a crowd and he'd say, "Okay, who wants to get initiated?" And the devotees would, whoever raised their hand up, he'd say, "Okay."
it was just like he was throwing. I don't know if you've heard of Johnny Appleseed. We have in
Hmm.
America Johnny Appleseed. He was
Yeah.
just had a bag of apple seeds. He was just walking all over the country throwing out apple seeds. So it was like that. Prabhupada was just throwing out seeds of bhakti to anyone. Sometimes it's described that the rain falls on a rock, the rain falls on a river or an ocean, and sometimes the rain falls on, fertile ground. So he was just throwing out seeds to whoever would pick it up. Such mercy, such kindness. And I often think, well, if he wasn't so compassionate, why did he even come, to such places? If he was in ecstasy actually in Vrindavan, why did he even come to places like New York or Africa or Tehran or, why did he do that? He was really feeling, hearing our cries, I always feel, feeling our suffering and so compassionate. Um, yeah.
It worked. The seeds sprouted. This brings me to our next question. Because you met Srila Prabhupada at such a young age, what were some of your earliest impressions of him, and what memories from those early days have stayed with you most strongly?
Yeah, so he was just Srila Prabhupada was just so deep, so authentic. I think people today are really looking for authenticity. He was so deep, so authentic, so compassionate, and he was just so inclusive of this young wild girl, a 16-year-old. What was I doing there, right? He was just sharing, I feel like he was sharing bhakti without borders. And yeah, so I shared that story. And not only was Srila Prabhupada so inclusive, I also experienced that very welcoming, inclusive atmosphere in the San Francisco temple where I first met the devotees. And I had this first impression. People might laugh hearing this, but I had this first impression that I was having an experience of a soul to soul relationship for the first time in my life. I wasn't being objectified or commodified because I was a young girl. So I think, unfortunately, sadly, many devotees who came later in other places to other temples did not have that same experience. But I have to say that was my experience. So that's kind of interesting. Very
Yeah,
inclusive, very loving, very compassionate, inclusive.
very beautiful. And I wonder if that's because it was like the beginning and the purity of it was so potent, and then afterwards, things as they form, we like figured stuff gets figured out. But that's just my first thought is, yeah, that's so beautiful, like having that, the real purpose of the movement, and you felt that right away in the
Well, it was
beginning.
Prabhupada's persona, it was his mood, which, sometimes after time, like once he said that he wished he could have personally trained each of his disciples because his mood was like that. It was, um, we use the word personalism so much, but he was such a personalist and so caring and so present for everyone. And yeah, just so he could be funny one moment, he could be overwhelmed with ecstasy the next moment, very deep and wise. And but he was, I always felt like he was just, when someone would ask a question, he was always seeing the mentality or the mood behind the question more than the question itself. He wasn't so much answering the question, but answering the actual mood um, of the person. So yeah, that personalism needs to be carried forward to the future. That can't be lost. That's the most important thing, I think.
Amazing. That's so beautiful. And which kind of carries into, there's a few Srila Prabhupada questions that are in succession here. But for those of us who have never had the fortune to meet Srila Prabhupada personally, are there aspects of his presence, mood, or personality that are difficult to capture through books or stories?
Yeah, we hear about these phrases, the book Bhagavat, like the Srimad Bhagavatam, or the person Bhagavat, which is like the person of a spiritual teacher. And both, it's essential to understand both. And I think in Prabhupada's lectures, in his books also, he was really speaking in a voice of authority and for all times, for now, but also in the future. And but it's, sometimes devotees say only what's in Prabhupada's books matters. His interviews, his conversations, his letters, those are not as important. But that's not true. It's all important because his persona is so important. Sometimes I wonder, I mean, it's kind of a ridiculous thought, but what if Prabhupada had just sent those books, those trunk loads of Srimad Bhagavatams that he struggled in his poverty to print? I mean, how did he even do that? What if he sent those in trunks on the Jaladuta and he didn't came? He'd come if he just stayed in Vrindavan. But you know, when a publisher publishes a book, they they always ask, well, who is the audience? Like if you write a book, the publisher will say, who's the audience for your book? But there was no audience for Srila Prabhupada's books. He came and personally came, even though, you know, yeah, he personally came and created an audience and a worldwide bhakti community, and he was opening hearts and just to give some inkling of an understanding for those books and his mission. Um, there's so many stories I could share. Let me share this one story that I like so much. When he was in Vrindavan, before he went to India, he was having a little satsang with some other sadhus in Vrindavan, and some of them were very critical of him leaving Vrindavan because there's this kind of maxim that a sannyasi should not cross the ocean. So that's actually a good rule for ordinary sannyasis because pretty much they'll probably just fall into nonsense or fall into Maya if they cross the ocean and meet, the Western culture. But so some of them were very much against him going. So he finally got his books. He had the three books printed, and it was a great accomplishment. So he held the three books in the three volumes of First Canto Srimad Bhagavatam in his hands, and he passed them around the circle, and he asked each one of these holy sadhus to bless the books. He said, "These books are going to America, so please bless them." So he passed the books around the circle, each one of them, gave their blessings. And then he said something, he sort of tricked them actually. He said, and of course someone will have to carry them. So please bless me also.
Mm.
So, he kind of tricked them because, so he ran into that later. He was criticized for his inclusive mood, and even before going. But yeah, he was literally spoon feeding us his own cooking, his own heart of bhakti, and he created our good fortune. Really, to be able to even begin to try to understand Bhagavad Gita. I mean, I had read Bhagavad Gita before. I couldn't understand anything about it. Most people think, oh, it's some kind of a war story, and they just put it down, like The Art of War or something, right? So Srila Prabhupada had to really spoon feed us to be able to understand the Siddhanta or the conclusions of the Bhakti scriptures and what's been handed down from him and his teachers. So, yeah, he was so present, so present. Yeah. I have so many stories. Should I share another story?
Sure. I
I don't
mean,
know how much time we can go over time, but
we have time.
yeah.
I just love that. I just want to quickly add, I love that you emphasize the personal part because actually, Pranada Prabhu, we talk about like she's a big advocate for bhakti writers that we need more personal stories of our experiences and how that is what Prabhupada he had that personal connection with people, and then all the other medicine came in that so we could understand it, and I think that's true too with our personal stories. Like that's what I mean, that's how I got into bhakti and Krishna consciousness was from my friends' stories, like real connections, and the books and stuff that comes later, the philosophy. So that thank you for emphasizing that and relating that to Srila Prabhupada because it's so important.
Yeah, I wanted to say that Srila Prabhupada was really very different from his godbrothers who preceded him to the West, the ones who went to London and Germany. They would give lectures in prestigious venues with dignitaries, and then they would go on to speak somewhere else. Srila Prabhupada's mood was very different. His mood was, come live with me. And he actually said this. It's really amazing. He said this to Allen Ginsberg, who is probably, I mean, one of the most decadent characters on the scene in New York. And Allen Ginsberg was telling him, this practice that you're offering, nobody's going to be able to do this. So he considered Prabhupada to be very orthodox. And he said, nobody's going to be able to do these things you're trying to teach them. And Prabhupada's response was, come live with me, to Allen Ginsberg, which is so amazing, such unbounded compassion.
Did he live with him? Did he move in?
No.
Yeah. We have the harmonium, Allen Ginsberg's harmonium here at the Beat Museum on Haight Ashbury, but I think it just got moved.
Wow. If you can find it, if you can get it from them, they're doing a retrospective of the last 250 years of US history, so we can get it and put it in the Smithsonian if they've just thrown it in a basement, but whatever,
I'll
if it's
I'll find
possible.
out. I'll find out. You were
Yeah.
going to share another story of one of your favorite
Well, I
stories.
have I have unlimited stories, but the one I wanted to share, I think this story shows how Prabhupada was seeing the mood behind the question, not just the question itself. So this is a sweet story. Actually, it took place in Berkeley, California, after a Ratha Yatra. So yeah, so it was actually one of the artists who was painting for Prabhupada's books. And he pulled a copy. We were in a little room, group of devotees after the Ratha Yatra. And he pulled a copy of Teachings of Lord Chaitanya off the shelf. And he said to Prabhupada, um, Prabhupada, often we see pictures of Lord Chaitanya and he has quite long hair, you
Mhm.
know? So Prabhupada, reading between the lines, what is he thinking? Oh, This young man doesn't want to have a shaved head. He would like to have long. Everybody at that time had long hair, right? You know, why do we have to shave our heads? So Prabhupada was so funny. He said, yes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was a hippie. And then he said, therefore he has come to save you. But because of his Bengali accent, where I don't, if you're familiar with Bengali language at all the S's are a little bit more or less SH. So we didn't know whether he was saying save you or shave you. And Prabhupada just picked up on that. And he just was laughing and he was saying, yes, save you and shave you. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has come to save you and shave you. So funny. It was so funny. But he was just really reading the mentality of the person who was asking the question. And another thing that was really funny is that he'd just been to another temple somewhere else. Malati Prabhu tells this story. And we were so new, we didn't know anything. We didn't know how to properly worship the deities. But in that temple, they had deities of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and they had really long hair down to their waist, like coming down like a curtain almost. And Prabhupada, in that temple where he had just been, he told them, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not a hippie. So he wanted their hair to be like this length, right? But then he comes to Berkeley, where everybody's practically a hippie. Everybody's a hippie, right? And he says, yes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's a hippie. So it's very charming. Very charming. Um,
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, his humor, like there's a lot of humorous stories that I just love. Thank you for sharing that one.
yeah, it's
Save
always
you and
his
shave you.
humor. His humor was often just seeing the absurdity of the world. He would be seeing some absurdity and make a comment about the absurdity of the material world. So yeah, his humor was stellar.
Oh my goodness. Okay, going into our next, another Srila Prabhupada question, and then we're getting into more you. Looking back over the decades, since those early days, how do you feel the movement Srila Prabhupada established has evolved?
Yeah, I want to say that there are devotees who've studied Sanskrit, spent a lot of time in India, but the question is, who has really imbibed the humility of Srila Prabhupada to be blessed with his knowledge? Have devotees, all of us, not they, but have we really imbibed the his inclusive, revolutionary, compassionate mood? That's really, I think, an important question to ask ourselves. He was so humble. He was a fit recipient to receive the blessings of his Guru Maharaj and the previous acharyas. He was also so revolutionary in his day, just like his guru Bhakti Siddhanta, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and even Lord Chaitanya were all revolutionary in their times. So I think we have to look back and study this mood of Srila Prabhupada, and it can never be lost as time goes on. And sometimes we think we know, sometimes devotees are thinking they know more than Srila Prabhupada, that Srila Prabhupada made some mistakes. Of course, he had to compromise for these fallen people in the West, but now we know better. We know Sanskrit, and we can correct some of the mistakes he made. So this is, I find, really, really insidious. And once Srila Prabhupada said that he told Shruti Kirti this. Well, Shruti Kirti Prabhu was Prabhupada's personal servant, and he would massage Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said to him once, while Shruti Kirti was giving him a massage, Prabhupada said, my godbrothers criticize me, but they don't understand that I have become successful because I engaged equally both the boys and the girls. They don't understand. This is why I have been successful. And I wanted to share something else on that point. This is quite amazing. So there was one very powerful sannyasi guru was very influential in the ISKCON movement. His name was Tamal Krishna Goswami. Actually, I mentioned him. He was the first one to talk to me in San Francisco when he had just come himself. And he wrote in his PhD thesis, if someone said, oh, this is ridiculous, it's impossible, how could he say this? I just want people to know that he wrote this in his PhD thesis, that Prabhupada told him that if it hadn't been for the dynamic presence of the women devotees in ISKCON, that most of the men would have left. And that's a statement coming from a very powerful sannyasi and guru. And I wanted to share something else from Srila Prabhupada I think is really important. In 1969, he wrote a letter to my god sister Himavati, and he said, personally, I am so much gladdened that the pairs of young boys and girls whom I have placed in householder life are doing so nicely in the Western world. When Lord Chaitanya delivered Jagai and Madhai, he was also a householder, but when Jagai and Madhai were actually reclaimed, his wife Vishnu Priya was not there. But in this case, and in many other cases also, I find that my disciples, combined together, husband and wife, are doing this preaching work so nicely. And then he says, so I am especially proud of how my householders' disciples are preaching Lord Chaitanya's mission. This is a new thing in the history of the Sankirtan movement. In India, all the acharyas and their descendants later on acted only from the man's side. Their wives were at home because that is the system from old times, that women are not required to go out. But in Bhagavad Gita, we find that women are also equally competent like the men in the matter of Krishna consciousness movement. Therefore, please carry on these missionary activities and prove it by practical example that there is no bar for anyone in the matter of preaching work for Krishna consciousness. Amazing, right?
So
1969, he wrote this letter, So
very
I just want
clear.
to, yeah, very clear. I wanted to just share one more thing about that I think in later decades, because your question is, it's about, what's different now? How was it then? I think in later decades, many devotees have missed this inclusive, adventurous, personalist spirit of Srila Prabhupada. And in many places, the mood has become more a more rigid letter of the law rather than a spirit of the law or the vibrant spirit of bhakti that Srila Prabhupada personally lived. Yeah, so I think that's important.
Wow. Thank you. I want to pull something. I was watching your interview with Happy Jack, and since we're on this topic, I really loved what you said. And forgive me if it isn't perfectly quoted, but you said we're all feminine in our relationship, in the relationship we have with God, regardless of the gender we've been given for our physical body. So,
Yeah, that's a beautiful theological point from our bhakti tradition. So Krishna and Radha, God is one. He becomes two to enjoy pleasure pastimes. And we are all expanded from Sri Radha. We're expanded from her joyous pleasure potency. And we have that feminine nature in our eternal nature beyond this body. So whether we're men or women, that's part of the bhakti theology. So it's really, really important to understand that, sometimes as women, we also have kind of a controlling Purusha or masculine mood, but that all has to be given up, whether we're men or women. We have to become Dasis, actually, servants of Krishna in a loving, loving mood. Yeah, it's beautiful, huh?
yes, thank you. In your own life, how has your understanding of bhakti deepened or changed over time?
Yeah, this is a beautiful question. I have to say, I agreed to do this interview because I thought the questions were so deep and so beautiful. So thank you so much. When I reflected on this question, I was thinking that at first on this spiritual path, or even in our, just in our ordinary lives, I feel like we begin life as infants, and as infants or spiritual infants, it's all about me and mine. you know, and then we grow, and first babies are mimicking others, then observing, taking it all in, and then hopefully growing up to take some responsibility. Grown up children begin to feel some gratitude for what they've been given, and some kind of loving reciprocation kind of should awaken in the heart, right? And I feel like mature children want to shoulder some of the burden, take on the headaches of the parents, or in this case, the guru. So yeah, and I feel like eventually, I think each one of us has to begin to taste it. It can't just be, Krishna consciousness has to become a lived, realized experience, not just something I'm hearing passively from other people. It's not enough to just say, kind of just check the boxes, and or to be part of a hopefully compassionate institution. That's not enough. We have to, each one of us has to take personal, deep shelter of our daily practice of Krishna consciousness, chanting, hearing, remembering, and finding shelter in like-minded devotee friends and mentors, and imbibing the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and this mood of joyous, simple love for Krishna following the residents of Vrindavan. We have to begin to taste it. It can't just be something that is going in one ear, mindlessly going out. And I like to give the example, I think I shared this on Jack's interview also, that I think of it as breathing in and fortifying ourselves each day, being nourished, being fortified, being blessed, and being transformed, and then being empowered to go out into the world and share, which is like breathing out, to go out, to breathe out, and to share what I've been given. Um, it's a blessing to receive such beautiful knowledge, such heart transforming knowledge, but then to share it is like breathing out. Um, and our acharyas on the bhakti path give an example that in bhakti, we don't want to merge with the ocean, as people on a more impersonal path would say. We want to become, and this is handed down from Rupa Goswami and great teachers, we want to become like deep sea aquatics, diving deep down, like taking a deep breath, right? And then diving deep down, and then coming up and jumping up and sharing. And I kind of think of it as, you could maybe say, like joyous bhakti dolphins.
I love that.
Do you see dolphins out there in the water in San Francisco?
No, no,
No.
I've never seen dolphins here. I don't know if we have. I think it's too cold for them. It's like the
Oh,
Bay Area. Maybe towards like Big Sur, like going
uh-huh.
down on the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think of it as breathing in and breathing out. There's a lot of burnout in people who are care workers, welfare workers, people who are in helping professions, or, aid workers. There's tons of burnout. But in order to avoid that burnout, we have to be nourishing ourselves very personally each day, and then going out to hopefully share with anyone who has a receptive heart. So I think that's an important metaphor.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's so important to share. That's like the seed spreading, right? Going back to Johnny Appleseed and Prabhupada, it's we learn it, but then we share it, and then that's how it works. That's how it keeps
Yeah.
spreading.
And I think it's really important also to understand and to realize that that's human nature. When I'm tasting something sweet, I want to share it. Have you tasted this cookie? This is the best, whatever it is. It's just human nature, to not be a miser when it's something sweet, that I want to share it. So that, that's gratitude. And I think that's realization of whatever I've received, I have to share. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's part of it. Part of it. Thank you. Next question. Okay, I'm excited about this one. Were there moments in your spiritual journey when your faith was tested? And if so, how did those experiences shape your relationship with Krishna?
Yeah, another beautiful question. Thank you. I think the greatest test for a disciple is the disappearance of her spiritual master. And
Mm.
yeah, and I have to ask myself, how does that profound grief translate into an experience to cause me to delve deeper into the gifts he gave me? You know, I mean, I have to honestly say there's some people after Prabhupada left this world, and some of them were the ones who had the most personal association with him. But, when he left, it was kind of like, oh, okay, now I can go do all the things I want to do that he told me I shouldn't do. Whereas devotees who were serving in temples all over the world, just doing their little services, often those were the ones who were able to maintain and continue. But yeah, this is a question I think I have to ask myself. I think we all have to ask ourselves, does that profound grief that I feel, that I felt, does it cause me to cry, for what I heard from him? Does it cause me to try to realize moment to moment the experience of Krishna consciousness and, making it real and taking shelter of Krishna in his holy name? And, and also, will that grief impel me to show my love for him by how I cooperate and honor other devotees who maybe have different points of view? And, and ask myself, will I live in gratitude and a sense of wonder at everything I've received from him? And will I try to share it in whatever ways people can receive even a little drop of it, drop of this bhakti sweetness? But I have to also say right now, I think it's a very difficult time in this world. And it's a very difficult time also in ISKCON. I think the ISKCON society is not, um, you know, immune to the sectarianism, the narcissism, the hate, the bigotry that's going on in the world. So it's a very difficult time in the world and in ISKCON. And I think that this is really important. I think devotees are meant to be angelic, compassionate, an uplifting force in this suffering world. We're meant to be kind, caring emissaries, ambassadors of Krishna's world, and reminding people of Krishna's love, and reminding others and ourselves that, this is not your home. We're meant for a much higher life with Krishna in his world. And that's something that we have that's unique in a personalist. I mean, other personalist traditions also say that, like Jesus Christ said, place not your treasures where moth and dust corrupt, but the more impersonal traditions, they don't have that concept that we're meant for something much higher, you know? So I think, yeah, Srila Prabhupada once said, Krishna is ever inviting the fallen, conditioned souls to associate with him in pastimes of love. So, what are we meant to be doing in this Krishna conscious society? I think we're meant to be imbibing it deeply, consciously, myself, and compassionately sharing it with other people. And one more thing I wanted to share, that it's something very beautiful Prabhupada wrote in his preface to Srimad Bhagavatam. So just imagine his urgent mood when he didn't know how much time he had. And he had these books, these three books, the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So what did he write in his preface? It's like he was really pouring his heart into these words. And he said that this Srimad Bhagavatam, this literature is meant for bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of a misguided civilization. And I think it's just so important for us to keep that vision in the forefront of our consciousness. I think it's a challenge. We have a mandate. This is a Krishna consciousness movement. It's about transforming consciousness, our own, and the consciousness of others. And he calls it a movement. It's meant to move. It's
Mm,
not, it can't stagnate. It's meant to move. So we're meant to be conscious and share spiritual consciousness and move and not stagnate. So those are a few thoughts.
yeah, thank you. I have a few things that come to mind as well, like the movement piece that you said. It's so important. And from my knowledge and what has been shared with me, like Prabhupada was really supportive of using new tools that were coming out as the world advanced with Krishna consciousness. So, like right now, social media is a perfect example. Like it can be a negative thing, but also we can turn it into a positive thing, like a tool to share Krishna consciousness and using the things that are available to us as the world evolve. So, yeah, thank you for that.
He wasn't
Yeah.
rejecting anything. I mean, this is called Yukta Vairagya. It's a term from Rupa Goswami. It means realized practical renunciation. In other words, if something can be used in Krishna's service, how can it be falsely rejected? So he was all about, and his guru, Maharaj, also. Bhaktisiddhanta was driving around in cars when cars are like, how many of them were even there in Calcutta? So using whatever we can to share Krishna consciousness in realized ways without getting sucked into the negativity. I know myself, like when I open YouTube to look for a podcast that I'm interested in hearing, I have to say a little prayer first that I don't get sucked into all the craziness, the stuff people are trying to sell me, or what they're trying to tell me what's happening in Hollywood or with Donald Trump or the royals in the UK. I have to really say a little prayer that, no, I'm here for a spiritual purpose to find this podcast that will enliven my heart, not to get sucked into so much gossip that will waste so much of my time.
Yeah, so true. I have to do the same thing. Another
Right.
important thing that you brought up was uh, turning loss into strength to further your bhakti. And that's something that I have some experience with last couple of years. So, yeah, turning any sort of loss or endings into new beginnings and into strength to go further into your bhakti practice, I think is such a beautiful way to like ensure that you're continuing on the path as a devotee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every time we lose something, it opens the door for something new. Rumi writes about how sorrow um, shakes the leaves, the dead leaves, and the rotten roots off the tree so that new roots can grow. And grief is a very dynamic force. Everyone has grief. We all have lost relationships, we've lost precious experiences. Loss comes in so many forms, but that kind of grief, which we all carry in different ways, it dares us to love again and it dares us to create again. So every ending is room for a new beginning. It's very, very important to understand that. And yeah, and creative energy can so easily turn destructive if we
Mm-hmm.
don't if we don't use it. Um, so we're all given gifts that are meant to be used and shared. God-given gifts need to be used for God, right?
Yes. Yes. Okay. You have done so much important work supporting women in spiritual life. What inspired you to begin that work, and what have you learned through that experience?
Thank you for such a beautiful question. So yeah, I think in any spiritual gathering, there are always more women than men, right? Even Prabhupada writes this in one of his purports. Any spiritual gathering, any church or temple or yoga studio, there's always more women than men. But what I notice is so often the speakers are most often the men, right? So that's why I started this Urban Devi community to uplift the voices of the women. And I think you were going to share the link to that, right?
We
So,
shared it in yes, we shared it in stories, and then we'll reshare it again with this video.
okay, great. So it's a once a month online. It started at Bhakti Center, and then when COVID happened, it went online. So I used to go up to Bhakti Center up to New York every month, and now it's an international online once a month conversations of interest to women on the path of Bhakti in the 21st century. So, the women, different women present every month, and it's all brilliant women who are therapists or healers or diplomats or working in all different areas of the world, artists. And so it's always dynamic. And what we do is the speaker presents for about 25 minutes, and then we break up into little groups so we can share more intimately. And then we come back in the plenary and ask questions. So I think people are finding it rewarding. And it's nice to have those intimate little sanghas that maybe we don't find in a typical, maybe temple environment or wherever we are. Maybe a lot of people are really far from some kind of a temple. I know one woman who regularly joins, she's up in the north of Sweden somewhere. So many people are not anywhere near any kind of a community. So I think it's really important. And I think often women feel unseen, unheard, and unappreciated for their contributions. And the contributions of women are always immense, right? So yeah, I think it's very important. It's my little contribution for uplifting the voices of women.
Oh, it's wonderful. I've attended a few, and I'm attending, I think Pranada is a guest next week, or
Yes.
yes,
No, it's actually this Sunday. So
this
today's
Sunday.
Friday. Yep. So it's this Sunday, 2 days from now. So please join in. She's going to talk about the spiritual dancing of Radharani, which is beautiful.
Oh, okay. And
So,
I think I joined when Kishore Gopi was a guest. So many amazing women have been guests on Urban Devi. It's really such an inspiring platform. So we will reshare the link again and encourage our viewers and friends on Ladies of Bhakti to join as well.
and you know what? If it's an inconvenient time or you can't make it, it's always
Mhm.
recorded. So
Okay,
if you click on the link and join, we ask people to join themselves, and then you'll get the recordings, and you can always listen to them at a more convenient time. So that's good.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Awesome. In your view, what unique perspectives or contributions do women bring to the practice and culture of bhakti?
Yeah, I think women do bring a unique perspective to the world, to bhakti, and it's often a more balanced perspective of the needs of community, including the children, the families, and women themselves. And the voice of the women ideally should be more broad and inclusive and should honor and reflect the compassion of the divine feminine Sri Radha. I mean, the point is women can also go off the rail. Sometimes men have a very developed feminine side, a compassionate feminine side. We see the character of Jesus Christ or Saint Francis or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also very feminine in his ecstasy. So women should also, we shouldn't just use it as an excuse because I'm a woman. I can, just be aggressive, right? That's not the point. We should reflect the mood of the divine feminine, Sri Radha. And I also feel like it's important to say that when women's voices are dishonored, ignored, or silenced, it just opens the door for children to be abused or neglected, or our earth, Mother Bhumi, to be exploited, and for our communities themselves to just be unraveled. And this is a sad history. It's a sad history in the world, and it's a sad history in ISKCON as well, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, so this kind of weaves into ISKCON, a hot topic of discussion, current discussion, ongoing discussion regarding women serving as Diksha gurus. And I was just wondering from your perspective, what spiritual principles specifically should guide these important conversations?
That's phrased so beautifully. Um, I think as we're trying to be sincere followers of Srila Prabhupada and our previous acharyas, and I think we need to have a look at our Gaudiya history and the entire body and mood of their example and instructions, and not try to just cherry pick or try to, Prabhupada uses the term, try to screw out some meaning, not try to cherry pick or screw out some other meaning, or also not to dig into obscure sources that were never quoted by Srila Prabhupada or our other acharyas. Um, Chaitanya Charitamrita says that there's no difference between a Siksha and a Diksha guru. And there have been many Vaishnavi gurus on many levels for centuries in the Gaudiya Sampradaya. Um, some of them were great parishads, which means like a great, great teacher, like Janavi Devi or Gangamata Goswamini. She was the guru of the king of Puri at that time. Wow, that's amazing, right? And there are others who were prominent teachers and some who were simple village gurus. And this is our history. And of course, some people do not agree with this. Um, but I think in the world, I think this is an important point that in the world, there have always been deniers of history. There are people who deny the Holocaust in Europe, people who deny the atrocities of slavery, people who deny the various genocides in the world, the Armenian genocide, the genocide of the indigenous people in the US, or people who deny the abuses of colonialism. You could just, I mean, this itself could be an hour long or more conversation.
Mm-hmm.
The list that just goes on, right? And even today in the Gaudiya Math, there is a Vaishnavi Diksha Guru. She has several temples in the Calcutta area. And I saw a picture of her where she's surrounded by a number of Gaudiya Math sannyasis honoring her at her Vyas Puja ceremony, which is so interesting. Because
Yeah.
people used to say, well, if we do this in ISKCON, what will the Gaudiya Math say? So today, this is what's happening in the Gaudiya Math. I wanted to also share that my very dear god sister, Sitala, who lives in Sitala Prabhu, she lives in Mayapur. She tells a story that she was once in a room with Srila Prabhupada with a group of disciples in France, and he looked deeply into each one of their faces, into her face and the faces of everyone in the room, both the young men and the young women, and told each one of them, I want each one of you to become a guru. So that's a very powerful story. And I also wanted to say that this is not about personal ambition. This is the order of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila
Mm-hmm.
Prabhupada. So that's an important point because sometimes people are criticizing, well, why are these women so ambitious? It's not about personal ambition. This is the order of Srila Prabhupada and the order of Lord Chaitanya. Take my words and take it all over the world. Become guru and save this land. So beautiful. And Sitala Prabhu's story is similar to the story in my experience. You might have heard me tell this story that I was in New York. I was a young devotee in Srila Prabhupada's room with a group of disciples, and he was looking into each of our faces and saying, I want each one of you to open a temple somewhere. And I was a 16-year-old young devotee, and I was totally shocked. And I asked him, even the girls, Swamiji? We called him Swamiji at that time. Even the girls? And he was laughing. And he said, yes, there's no difference between the boys and the girls. When you're teaching Krishna consciousness, there is no difference. So also Srila Prabhupada would often say, because sometimes, it's a little bit of a pricker for us when we read Prabhupada's comments about women in his books, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he would often say that these girls are not ordinary girls. They're not ordinary women. They are Vaishnavis. They are devotees. So when he would speak, pointing out the dangers of the association with women, he would also always flip it for a woman. it's a danger to associate with a man in the wrong way, right?
Mhm.
But these women are Vaishnavis. They are devotees. They're on the spiritual path, you know. And another story that I think is really amazing, Srila Prabhupada. So there was a very powerful woman, a Vaishnavi book distributor in Los Angeles in the early days. And Srila Prabhupada asked her to come into his room. He wanted to hear, what are people saying when you've given them my books? What do you say? And what do they say? And at that time, Srila Prabhupada told her, he said, the women in the Krishna consciousness movement are Lord Chaitanya's secret weapon for spreading his mission. Is that amazing?
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so powerful, so beautiful. So, ladies of Bhakti, don't be dissuaded. Use the gifts that you've been given by Krishna. You know, yeah.
Wow, thank you so much for the message. Yeah, that's our hope with this account. Like it was a little seed that's, sprouting, and we want to bring more women in and to share their stories and their thoughts. And so thank you for that message and that reminder. Very, very powerful. So thank
You
you.
are a secret weapon. And
That
I
sounds
believe
so
it.
cool.
You are. You really are. More than me. You're a real secret weapon.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Oh my goodness. We thought when we first started, we thought, how are we going to go for an hour? And we're almost at an hour. I could talk to you for like hours and hours and hours.
I know.
But
I was.
we have a few more questions, if that's okay.
I'm happy.
Um,
I'm happy.
good, good. I'm glad. You have also, oh, this, yeah, another one I'm really interested in hearing more about this. You have also been involved in interfaith dialogue. Oh, that's right. Amazing. What have those experiences taught you about the universal nature of devotion?
Yeah, and here in Washington, we have a Vaishnava Christian dialogue that's gone on for 28 years, every year for 28 years. And
Mm,
someone writes a paper from the Christian side, or Protestant, and Catholic, and Vaishnav. We have different kinds of Vaishnavas, different kinds of Christians, and then we share about those papers, and then we discuss. And it's been such a heart connection. We had also a Vaishnav Muslim dialogue that went on for a number of years, and we want to get that one started again. But what I learned from these experiences is that hearing these same truths that I revere in our bhakti path echoed and amplified and spoken in other people's words and their realizations, it just wakes me up. Hearing it in someone else's words, I don't know if you experience that, but hearing it in
mhm,
someone else's words just wakes me up to the universal reality of the bhakti experience of love of God. And being in dialogue with these other traditions just helps me go deeper in my own understanding and appreciation of the treasures I've been given, and it helps me share them as well. And I want to share something from one of our acharyas, Prabhupada's guru, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his father, and our sort of great great grandfather, spiritual master Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He writes in one of his songs, he was a poet, he wrote many songs. Here's what he says in one of his songs in his collection called Gitavali. He says, why do you continue to hate the way the Lord is worshipped by people of other lands? Some worship God by standing up, some by bowing down, but all of them worship that one and only supreme treasure, Lord Sri Krishna. And then he says, therefore, you should all reflect a mood of brotherhood, and I would add sisterhood, and live together in transcendental friendship. you know. And then there's
mhm,
another verse. This is kind of similar from Vamsi Das Babaji used to quote this one from Lord Chaitanya. I'll skip for time. I'll skip the Bengali, but this is Lord Chaitanya speaking to Sanatan Goswami. He says, "Hear me, Sanatan. Kindness to all living beings, taste for the holy name, and service to the Vaishnavas. Apart from these, there is no other religion."
mhm.
So how broad, how broad.
Yeah. Absolutely. I can relate to that in a way that I was raised Catholic, but I could never connect to the Catholic faith personally. But when I got into bhakti and Krishna consciousness, it actually strengthened my relationship with my parents who are Catholic,
Yeah,
and loving and appreciating that part of my upbringing that I didn't see before. And
yeah,
also Radhanath Swami's book, the Journey Within, the second one that's about bhakti, I think beautifully encapsulates like the different faiths and this as well, and the different languages that can act as a bridge rather than a separation. So,
right, right.
mm,
And I have to say also that when I started studying, hearing from Prabhupada and reading Bhagavad Gita, I had this experience that "Ah, this is what Jesus was talking about.
mm,
This is what, I was raised Jewish. My parents were really secular and they weren't, I was sort of the only one in the family who was really more interested in it. Um, but, that was my experience when I started hearing from Prabhupada and reading Bhagavad Gita. This is what the saints of all these traditions were talking about. And now suddenly it's become illuminated by the heart of a great sadhu.
mm,
So, yeah.
exactly. Wow.
Mhm.
Chai. Okay, we have a few more questions. So many people today encounter bhakti through yoga, kirtan, or wellness communities before connecting with traditional temple culture. How do you see Krishna consciousness interacting with modern spiritual culture?
Yeah, I think each one of our acharyas are great teachers from history. Um, they all had challenges in their own times. And the question is how to make the teachings of Lord Chaitanya relevant to the people of that time and place. And as I said before, Srila Prabhupada called Krishna consciousness a movement. It has to move. It has to be relevant without losing its essence. And that requires realization to be relevant to the current times. We have to become realized essence seekers, go to the essence, share the essence, and not get tripped up in the external details. Um, I need to try to become simple, sincere, and without ulterior motive. And then we'll all be like touchstones. You know, anyone who meets us, anyone who touches us, whether it's in a yoga studio or wherever it is, people are going to be touched. It'll be like being touched by fire. Um, they'll be touched by an authentic experience of lived Krishna consciousness. It can't be stereotyped. And then I think Krishna will find us worthy to be his instruments and bless this world without discrimination. Bless the world with the magic. We're holding magic, the magic of Prema Sankirtan and holy sadhu sangha. I mean, who gets to associate in such a deep way with people? Actually, my sister and brother-in-law came with Gauravani and I on our retreat last year to Govardhan Eco Village. And my brother-in-law is a very, very deep person, raised in Protestant Christianity. And he was saying, I don't experience this in my life to just be able to sit at breakfast or lunch or hang around with a bunch of guys at the pool and just talk about God. I don't have this in my usual life. So, yeah, people are looking for something authentic. And I think most people are really exhausted and tired of the pretense, the masks, the sectarianism, the discrimination, the posturing that we're all seeing in the world, and unfortunately in religion as well. You
Mhm.
know, yeah. So if we're authentic, I think it will act like fire,
Yeah,
and not get tripped up in the details. Just stick to the principles, not the details.
yeah, exactly. Keep it, I like you said, simplify. We
Yeah,
overcomplicate things, but if we
yeah.
simplify it, it works.
When we read Krishna book or look at the residents
Mm,
of Vrindavan, they're so simple. They're so childlike and so simple. And when we can simplify our lives, then it leaves a lot of time and space to just appreciate the wonders of the world and the wonders of Krishna consciousness. Um, One great teacher of gratitude, he's a Benedictine monk. He's one of my, teachers of gratitude, Brother David Stendal Rast, he gives a beautiful example that, he gives an example of a fountain. You know how a fountain, it's overflowing, right? The bowl of the fountain is so big and the water's overflowing. But he says, and I think this is really powerful, he says, but if the bowl gets bigger and bigger and bigger, then that water doesn't overflow. So if I, you know, have so many things in my life, I'm, as you said, complicated. I have so much stuff encumbering my life, and that bowl of my heart is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I need this and this and this. Then that gratitude of love can't overflow in the fountain of my heart. So to be simple, sincere, and without ulterior motive is really an important mantra, I think.
Mm, yes, thank you for the reminder. Looking back on your life in devotional service, what realizations have been most meaningful or surprising for you?
So as I look back, I see that I've made many mistakes. Why? Because of pride, because of forgetfulness, or just taking what I've received too cheaply, nonchalantly. And I think I really need to wake up today to an urgent gratitude and a sense of wonder at everything that I've been given by Srila Prabhupada and his beautiful gift of this. And the only word for it really is sublime. I love that word.
Mm,
Sublime path of bhakti, you know? And my realization is if I'm really going to try to follow the mood of Srila Prabhupada and these simple residents of Vrindavan, then I need to be aspiring each day to live in gratitude and a sense of wonder and wake up every day to a radical, grateful amazement or astonishment. Wow, I've been given another day. Did I deserve another day? Did I deserve another moment? And really keep my eyes and my heart open to the wonders of Krishna's gifts in this world, to live in appreciative gratitude and sense of wonder. And I have to honestly say, I pray for that every morning, that, you know, let me live this day in gratitude and a sense of wonder. And then, there's another term I like to use, radical noticing. Then when you pray for that and when you're conscious of that, when you're looking for that, then you notice, like a radical noticing. You notice when someone's sitting in a corner looking sad, or maybe a bum on the street you can share some prasadam with, or whatever. You notice more. You notice the ladybugs. You notice the butterflies. Like, we have this wonderful woman temple president here in our DC temple, Ananda Vrindavan. She's amazing. She's doing what no man in the past history of our temple has ever been able to do. She built this amazing temple with the help of community, of course, but she was saying to me, yeah, so we had Ram Navami last night, and in Washington right now, all the trees are blooming. The whole city is like pink and yellow and white, all these blooming trees. And she was saying to me yesterday that it's so dangerous to drive in the city right now because you get so distracted by all the colors of all the blooming trees. So, yeah, I think we have to live in that radical noticing,
mhm.
not just keeping my eyes on the road, right?
Yes,
Myopically. Oh, notice, be
noticing.
grateful.
I think
Yeah.
that's possible too when we simplify, right? We're eliminating the distractions, and then we're able to focus on like the beauty and bring in the radical noticing when we make space by simplifying.
Right. And as women, we so often think, well, I need this and I need this. My wardrobe's looking really shabby these days and I really could use, whatever. I mean, we have to
All the time.
control it. Yeah, we
Yeah,
have to. I mean, it's okay to get stuff, but
yeah.
we don't need to have unlimited stuff, right? And if I
Hmm.
get something new, okay, give something old away,
Yes, I
You
love
get
that.
something new, give something old away, make space in your heart and your closet.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, my headphones just perished. That's okay. All right, so I have two more questions, and then any final words you'd like to share. What
Okay.
guidance would you offer to younger devotees who are trying to navigate spiritual life in the modern world?
Okay, I would ask younger devotees, or older devotees, what on the path of bhakti makes you come alive? You know, how can you make it your own? What inspires your heart? Each one of us is a different and unique individual, and each of us has unique and sacred gifts given by Krishna, and those gifts are meant to inspire your heart and are meant to be shared with the world. And I always like to tell this story. I have some devotee friends in Mumbai, two sisters in one family. The older sister is really happy at home being the mother of three kids, and her younger sister has become a lawyer, and she plans to become a judge, and her goal is to become the Prime Minister of India. She says that is her goal. So, wow, you know, use your unique creative energy as a woman. Don't be dissuaded by anything. Don't let any stereotyped ideas of what you can or can't do, what you should or shouldn't do. Don't let any of those ideas dissuade you. And when creative energy is blocked, I said this before when we were talking, when creative energy is blocked, it can become destructive, negative energy. So pray to Krishna to help you see and realize your gifts and how to use them in his service. And another thing that I think is really important, that on your path of bhakti, it's an essential lifeline to have like-minded friends and mentors in your life. In a big international community or world, there may be plenty of people that you can't relate to or don't inspire your heart, but like-minded friends and like-minded association, like-minded mentors is very important. And Srila Prabhupada told Yamuna Devi that this is a really beautiful instruction. He said, association, or we could say community, can be 2 or 200. A few intimate friends may be more important than many who don't resonate deeply with your own inner heart. So I think that's really important. In the days of, so many friends on Facebook and TikTok and all this stuff, no, those aren't real friends. It may be just 1 or 2 or 3, but those like-minded friends, those are your lifeline to awakening your own, inspiring your own heart, I think.
Absolutely. It's so, so important. Yes, to have that association of like-minded, and it keeps the practice going too, right? Especially when there's harder moments and challenges, which are inevitable. So,
Yeah.
our final question, is there anything you would especially like to share with the devotees and listeners that we have not asked about?
Yeah, I wanted to share a really beautiful story of Srila Prabhupada that it's my most favorite story of Prabhupada, and it shows his broad, inclusive, compassionate, and visionary mood. So Srila Prabhupada was once asked by a very new devotee. He was kind of a really new guy, and he was doing this guard service of guarding Prabhupada's house at New Vrindavan when Prabhupada was there for just a few days. So he was the outside guard, and suddenly Srila Prabhupada appeared in the garage. It started to rain, and he came into the garage, and Prabhupada just appeared right behind him, and he offered his obeisances, and then he said, Srila Prabhupada, is there any service I can do for you? And Prabhupada said this most amazing thing, and I think this is really, really precious for all of your listeners to remember. So Prabhupada said to him, yes, you can go where I will not go. And he was so bewildered. But Srila Prabhupada, where is that? You go everywhere. Srila Prabhupada had just come from Texas and California and Germany and London and Japan, and you go everywhere. Where is it that you won't go? And Prabhupada said to him, and I love this so much, Prabhupada said, go to the future. And by the way you treat the people there, you will show them how much Krishna loves them.
Mm.
So I think that's really the essence of his mission. Yeah. And thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity to share. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for taking this time to spend with us. And yes, we'll keep, for anyone that couldn't join live, it'll be a post. I will extract the video and send it to you as well and tag you. So give me like 30 minutes to get all of that. And thank you so much. Like, you know, what an honor and such a great joy to get to speak with you and hear your wisdom and your thoughts and your experiences. So we're very, very grateful.
Well, I feel like you are the future. You are this future. And so if someone from the past can share a little few drops, you are the future. You're the ones who are going to take it forward. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. We will be in touch. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.